Hello, and thank you for watching this ag forecast for the Western U.S. I'm Andrew Pritchard, Senior Meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. So check out the 500 millibar flow here on this Tuesday morning. A couple features to pick out. We've got our ridge here. It's been kind of squeezed off to the west across the Pacific right now. We've got strong jet stream flow coming up and over the top of that. A bit of a cutoff low right now across the central Rockies, down across the southern U.S. As we take a look at the response at the surface there, what's going on in the lower levels, well, that's triggered a strong southerly flow here. Moisture pooling along a front right now that's bringing all kinds of heavy rain to the southern U.S. from Texas into the Ozarks, parts of the Mid-South. We're seeing cool air being plunged out of the Canadian Prairie into the northern plains, and as we go ahead and just fast forward a couple of days, this is the pattern that we're going to be looking at and what's going to be taking us into the end of the week and early next week. And it's a pattern like this. We're going to see the ridge reestablish itself across the western U.S. We're going to have strong flow coming up and over the top of that ridge, northwesterly flow coming out of the Canadian Prairie, bringing big sweeping cool fronts that are going to deliver cooler and drier air to parts of Montana and Wyoming, and then on east across the Corn Belt into the Great Lakes. We're going to continue to see that heavy rain thread through the end of the week across the far south, but it's going to be quiet, hot, and dry air across the west, which is going to bring a renewed threat for the fire risk here across the west. Now, as we talk about the next 3 days, we're looking at the fire weather forecast from the Storm Prediction Center, highest across the state of Montana, at times surrounding portions of Idaho and Wyoming, and then on into parts of the western Dakotas. And we can take a look at the hazards map from the National Weather Service here. We've got red flag warnings in place across Montana and Wyoming, on east into the Dakotas. We've also got excessive heat watches in place across parts of the Southwest, across Southern California, Southern Nevada, getting into western portions of Arizona, and red flag warnings in place across some of those areas as well. Now, we also had frost and freeze warnings in some of our higher elevations of Nevada, Idaho, and parts of Wyoming, and even a little bit of snow falling in some of those areas during the overnight. Now, we're talking about the red flag warnings in place across Montana, and at times getting into portions of Idaho and Wyoming, and then on into the western Dakotas here. And a big reason for that is going to be the strong gusty winds today and tomorrow on the heels of these cool fronts. They're sweeping out of the Canadian Prairie into the Midwest. So as we head through the day today, winds gusting 20 to 40 miles per hour at times, and we'll see the same thing as we head into the day tomorrow. We'll see those winds begin to back off during the overnight, but as we head into Wednesday afternoon and evening, once again, we'll see those winds gusting anywhere from 30 to 40, if not up towards 45 miles per hour at times across parts of Montana. Again, that bringing in cooler shots of air. We're seeing some of that here in eastern portions of Montana and Wyoming. Meanwhile, the heat starting to resume here across parts of the Southwest. Here's a look at Tugwotee Pass here across some of the higher elevations of Wyoming. Actually saw some of the snow stick long enough into the overnight until the sun rose, and we're able to get some images there. So a little late August snow there, and some of the higher elevations with some of this cool air coming in on the heels of the first of several cold fronts that are going to be sweeping out of the Canadian Prairie. But by and large, we're going to be talking about a lot of hot and dry air across the west as we head into the end of the week. Now, a quick check of the radar, nothing going on in the west, but we do have plenty of heavy rain that I mentioned here across parts of Oklahoma and Texas, north and east into the Ohio River Valley, and that'll be spreading into the Mid-South and parts of the eastern Corn Belt as we head through the rest of the day today. And it is going to be across this corridor that we see most of our thunderstorm activity as we head through the end of the week, right along that stalled frontal boundary, where again we're pumping Gulf moisture northward. We've got that little cutoff low right in this region, so all the ingredients there for the regeneration of clusters of showers and storms, but that's about the only place we're going to be seeing repeated rounds of rain as we head through the next few days. So we'll look at the high resolution NAM model precipitation forecast, and again, coming right around this little area here, funneling up along that stalled frontal boundary where we've got the upper level support. Again, a very concentrated corridor of some significant rainfall expected. In some of these areas, if you kind of hone in right on this region, we already saw several days worth of heavy rainfall with Laura, and then some of the thunderstorm activity that's happened over the last 24 to 36 hours. So not related to the west, but this is really about the only place that we've got interesting precipitation to talk about over the rest of the course of this work week. So let's step back. Let's look at the evolving 500 millibar pattern. A couple things to point out. I'll just let it play here for a moment. But you can really kind of visualize what's going on here, and then we'll stop and we'll point out a couple features. Now, as I go ahead and just bring it to right around the end of the week here, Thursday into the Friday time frame, so late week into the weekend, you see our ridge reestablishing itself. You see the very strong flow of the jet stream shoved well off to the north, so coming in from the Gulf of Alaska across British Columbia, and then diving across the Canadian Prairie into the Great Lakes. We've also got this weak little trough cut off from the flow here, kind of meandering around the Pacific, where we've got flow coming down around the base of that trough, out ahead of it, and then wrapping back around our ridge here. So with the strong jet stream flow off to the north, this trough has nowhere to go. And as long as it sits there, kind of just, I'll hit play on it once again. You can see it's got nowhere to go with the stronger flow off to the north. Let's hit play on this once more. And so as long as it does that, we get kind of this coupling here where this ridge also has nowhere to go across the west. So it looks like this may be a pattern that we're dealing with here into the 7 to 10 day time frame. So we're seeing some cool air come in on the backside of one of our fronts here that's sweeping across the Midwest. We can see some of that cooler air making its way into some of the higher elevations here, parts of Idaho and Montana, dipping down into northern Nevada, getting into northern Utah as well. And that's where some of those higher elevations were able to sneak out some early snowfall here during the day yesterday. Short-lived, though, as I mentioned, we're going to see the heat taking back over later today, and this is going to be the pattern then as we head into the end of the week and into the weekend. We'll see as we get into next week, Monday and Tuesday, right around the September 8th and 9th time frame, we're watching a big cold front to come sweeping through into the midsection of the country. This could deliver another shot of cooler air to eastern portions of Montana and Wyoming, maybe eastern portions of Colorado as well, but by and large across the west, keeping the heat on with that ridge establishing itself as we head into the next 7 to 10 days. So as we do that, we're not going to be talking about a lot in the way of thunderstorm activity or precipitation across the west. As we just kind of watch this animation here, we're looking at the precipitable water content within the atmosphere, so kind of looking at the moisture content, the depth of the moisture there. You see the very saturated air mass across the south that continues to see heavy rain as we head into the middle and later part of the week. But then what I want you to notice are the plunging fronts coming out of the Canadian Prairie and how that dry air just kind of, some of it's honestly pulled back across the west. And we're just also seeing much of the moisture from the Pacific being driven northward with a stronger jet stream flow, with the very fast jet stream flow north of the the Gulf of Alaska into British Columbia. That's where we're going to see much of our moisture content. I'm having some errors here with the iPad, which is tripping me up, but we're good to go now. You see the flow or the trajectory of the deeper moisture coming off the Pacific is into British Columbia, into the Canadian Prairie, where we'll see chances for showers and storms for some of these bigger troughs that are sweeping across the area, but very dry across the west, much of the moisture being displaced well north of our region. So as we look at the forecast for lightning activity heading into Wednesday, Thursday now, this will take us into Friday, into Saturday, very quiet across the region. We'll hit play on the precipitation forecast from the European model as well, taking it into Thursday, getting into Friday, and now Saturday. The ridge really establishing itself here. All the moisture being deflected well north of the western U.S. here into British Columbia and parts of Alberta. We're taking it all the way into the end of the weekend here, Sunday into Monday. As we get into early next week, we may see thunderstorm activity resuming across parts of Arizona and New Mexico, but it looks very quiet across the west as we head into next week. Total precipitation between now and Saturday. Again, you see some very isolated thunderstorm activity possible across portions of Arizona and New Mexico, but by and large keeping it dry here across the west. We'll finish with the look at high temperatures then today. A bit on the cooler side today with that front coming through the area. The jet stream with that little kind of cutoff low across this area. We're going to see heat really taking back over as we head into the mid to late part of the week, though, with 90s and 100s becoming widespread as we get into Friday and Saturday.